Yeah, it's in the. It's in the. Excuse me, you're just. I got it. Yes. Thank you.
আমার বলছি এটা সিস্টেমটা ওকে আমি
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, brother.
Is there any chance I could borrow a pen?
A pen? Let me see if I got one.
Does that go from my
Yeah, I don't.
হ্যাঁ এই জন্যই তো কারণ এটা কেন ভাঙছে ইয়ে রে ইয়ে এটা থেকে সি করে সি করে নাম
Stop it. Stop it. Yes, you can take this.
Another building. I don't know. Last time I seen
This one? They said yes. You're in it, right? So can you talk a bit more about that?
Basically, we play games outside. Like we have polkas and mashed every Friday, and we give talks and really just like conferences. And then like people outside, like go to watch in the restaurant, go to collaboration with the other Mayans, and sometimes we come here because we go to Mayan Bashida because it's usually in October, as well as the retreat in the summer, which usually takes place around August.
Yeah. Nice. So are you one of the organizers or are you a member?
I'm just a member, but I actually, one day I should be like.
Nice. So you know if you don't like your organizing, why not?
You can get in touch with the person. She can talk about what's happened to me. And you can also get recording accent and the next time.
I'll buy you a drop.
Okay. There's an working session. There's an working session.
Of course.
He was eating his bagel. Oh no, yeah, he's long hair.
They're reserved.
I'm flying, man. How you doing? You give Imam his money back. You know you're on live right now. You on live right now, brother.
Because he said he was going to talk to the roommate. Yeah? He said he was going to talk to the roommate for sure. Maybe it's not a room that I had it. It was just running. I'm not sure if there's evidence.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
For attending today's session. My name is Khalid. I'm going to be the moderator for today, inshallah. Before I introduce the speakers for today, before I introduce the topic as well, we're going to start off in the best absolute way possible. And that's going to be with a Quran recitation from our brother Ali.
وعليكم السلام.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إن تطيعوا فريقا من الذين أوتوا الكتاب يردوكم بعد إيمانكم كافرين. وكيف تكفرون وأنتم تتلى عليكم آيات الله وفيكم رسوله ومن يعتصم بالله فقد هدي إلى صراط مستقيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. واعتصموا بحبل الله جميعا ولا تفرقوا واذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ كنتم أعداء فألف بين قلوبكم فأصبحتم بنعمته إخوانا وكنتم على شفا حفرة من النار فأنقذكم منها كذلك يبين الله لكم آياته لعلكم تهتدون. ولتكن منكم أمة يدعون إلى الخير ويأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر وأولئك هم المفلحون. ولا تكونوا كالذين تفرقوا واختلفوا من بعد ما جاءهم البينات وأولئك لهم عذاب عظيم. يوم تبيض وجوه وتسود وجوه فأما الذين اسودت وجوههم أكفرتم بعد إيمانكم فذوقوا العذاب بما كنتم تكفرون. وأما الذين ابيضت وجوههم ففي رحمة الله هم فيها خالدون تلك آيات الله نتلوها عليك بالحق وما الله يريد ظلما للعالمين ولله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وإلى الله ترجع الأمور صدق الله العظيم.
Does anyone have the password for this computer? Jazakallah khair, Brother Ali, for that amazing recitation. Once again, before I introduce the speakers for today, I just want to talk a little briefly about the organization that's made this entire conference possible, and that is Young Muslims, or YM as many of us call it. So, YM is the largest Muslim organization in the country. They have multiple chapters in states like California, in Texas, in New York, and in New Jersey, where I'm personally from, so shout out to New Jersey. The purpose of the organization is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by bringing the Muslim youth of different communities together, creating a sense of brotherhood and sisterhood for those people while also bringing them closer to the deen. And they also serve to build and nurture the next generation of Islamic leaders within those respective communities and in society as a whole, which is extremely, extremely important. And one personal story about how this organization has impacted me. So me personally, I'm the oldest of 3 brothers, and I never had an older brother figure in my life. And ever since coming to YM, I'm 20 years old right now, alhamdulillah. I started coming when I was 16. And as soon as I started coming, that completely changed. I can name drop like probably 15, 20 guys that I can consider my mentors, my personal mentors, teachers, and stuff like that. People who have guided me to who I am today, alhamdulillah. So that's the work, and that's the amazing work and the beauty of the work that this organization does. But without further ado, the overview of today's workshop is going to aim to focus on the history of activism and also the different modes of activism. Today's workshop, inshallah, is going to aim to focus on the history of activism and also the different modes of activism within Islamic history. We're going to talk about the power of small actions leading to significant change, and also learn about the different types of activism as well. So learn ranging from traditional dawah efforts to leveraging stuff like social media for more positive influence. And also this workshop is going to hope to inspire the youth of today and in this room to stand up and speak up against injustice and also make a difference within their community, inshallah. So for our first topic, which is going to be led by Imam Khalid, Griggs is going to talk about the history of activism in Islam and also the early Islamic movement. We're also going to discuss about how small acts of activism have historically led to a significant change in Muslim communities and in society as a whole. So Imam Khalid Griggs is a national lecturer in social criminal and justice reform activist. He's a graduate of Howard University, majoring in political science and in English. And he currently serves as the Director of Civic Engagement for the ICNA Council for Social Justice. He's the Chairman of Muslim Alliance for Black Lives, and he's also a board member of several other Islamic and social justice organizations. So inshallah, please everyone, give your attention.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Brothers and sisters, it's always a pleasure for me to be able to come and address this group of young Muslims. And I started addressing young Muslims many, many years ago. Many of the graduates of young Muslims, I remember when they were little boys and little girls, and now they are leaders in this organization and they are leaders in the Islamic movement across the country. So it's very gratifying to be able, after so many years, to still be able to come back and meet new young Muslims and to try to inspire you all to do what is best for your soul first, for your akhirah, and do what's best for the community, the Muslim community, and the community at large. I want to start with a quotation. And this is a quotation is by someone who was very much involved in the theory and being on the field with revolutionary activities with the Muslim Mujahideen in Algeria. And I'm talking about Frantz Fanon. If you don't know who Frantz Fanon is, go to Check Google. And Check Google will give you some basic information about Frantz Fanon. There's nothing definitive to say that he ever embraced Islam, but he adopted the name Ibrahim. And he wrote and he spoke and he hung out with the Mujahideen who were fighting against the colonists, the French. And he was there, right there on the front line, and he was with the Muslims. And he was a very tremendous thinker. His probably most renowned work is The Wretched of the Earth. And I encourage you to take the time to look at his works, to read about him. Don't do it right now. Pay attention a little bit to what I'm saying. But immediately after I finish, then you go ahead. I see immediately my brother and sister going right to it. But I want you to essentially read about Frantz Fanon. So this quote that I want to offer up at the beginning of this presentation is that Frantz Fanon said that each generation must discover its mission, fulfill that mission, or betray it. Each generation, talking about you guys, each generation must discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it. Now, as an organization, Young Muslims, as individual Muslims in American society today, it seems that you may not have a difficult time trying to navigate and realize what is our mission as young Muslims. Living in an environment where whether you're going to public school or whether you're watching television, whether you're listening to music, whatever you may be doing in the course of the day, much of what you're being bombarded with are things that are calling you away from the practice of Islam. You know and I know that there's certain lyrics to songs that many of our Muslims listen to and enjoy these songs, but those lyrics have some kind of subliminal suggestion that stick in your head. And if you're listening to songs and music that are calling you to do things against Islam, not calling you to remind you of the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are shooting yourselves in the foot as it relates to identifying my generation. What is the mission for this generation that I'm a part of? I can honestly say that over the years, when I was a much younger person, starting in high school, I realized early on that there was something that my generation, there were some things that we needed to address, that there were things in the society that were going wrong, and they were going and driving the nation over the cliff. And if I and others didn't try to do something about it, we will go over the cliff in that car that is going in the wrong direction. And so we had to decide, what is our mission?
And even though I went away and I went to college, I never forgot about that mission that as even before I embraced Islam, that something was wrong here. That the society was not based on the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so many things were pulling me away and my generation away. So we had to have it defined in our minds and our hearts. What is our mission? We have the energy, we may have the intellect, we may have the ability to help effect change. So what was our mission? So I won't get into that, but now you have to discover, realize, understand that you will be the standard bearers for what's going on, not just in the Muslim community, but you're going to be the standard bearers as to how Islam, what will be the future of Islam in this country. And by the same token, what will I do to contribute to the future of this nation? I want to go through some brief moments in the history of activism as it relates to Muslims. And I want to say at the outset that there are two different kinds of activism amongst Muslims that we find here in the United States historically. And the different kinds and forms of activism are parallel to the condition of the people who were carrying the standard of Islam in the United States at a particular time. And then at other periods of time, there were others who were carrying these standards, young people carrying the standards of Islam. But let's go back. You have to decide and define what your mission is going to be, or you're just going to ignore it, you're going to betray it, you're not going to fulfill it. I want to start with someone, in my opinion, is the father in the United States of Muslim activism. And I'm talking about Al-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz, Malcolm X. And the reason why I say that he was kind of the father of activism, because we're talking about going back to 1964, when Malcolm left the Nation of Islam officially in March of 1964. And he didn't leave behind his activism or his social consciousness. He brought that into his understanding of Islam. And with that understanding of Islam that he was developing, and with that history of activism and trying to effect change in the American society, what we found was that Muslims, like myself, were coming behind him, younger than he was, but coming behind him and drawing inspiration and guidance from this man, Malcolm X. And millions of us even embraced Islam to a large degree because of the example that Malcolm X showed, and this example is living kind of example. And so this activism during this particular time, you find that there were many who were involved in the Black freedom struggle or the civil rights struggle in this country that saw the compatibility of Islam with revolutionary or movements that are changing for the better the societies in which they live. And so a number of young people, due to this influence, ended up, even if they weren't doing their work in Muslim organizations, they were Muslim activists. And at that particular time, there were few, I'll put it like that, Muslim organizations that were pushing for social change the way that Malcolm was calling for it. So many of these Muslims joined organizations like the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. And the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense scared the American government and law enforcement to death. Read about it. But there were many Muslims who were members of this organization, that they were influenced by the Islamic example of Malcolm, and they were influenced by his kind of revolutionary spirit. But there was no movement, organization of Muslims that was addressing those peculiar and particular needs. And so many of them, as I say, were in the were in the Black Panther Party for self-defense. I'll just mention a few names. I won't get into a lot of their stories. I'll just mention them by name. There was a brother by the name of Zayd Shakur. Zayd Shakur was a practicing Muslim. It wasn't that he just adopted a Muslim name. He was a member of the Black Panther Party. And in 1973, he was traveling on the New Jersey Turnpike, and the highway patrol stopped the car because there were members of the nation and there were many other activists in the car. And as a result of being stopped, a shootout erupted, and Zayd was shot dead and laying on the side of the road. They didn't initiate the contact, but they had weapons with them, and when the police started shooting at them, they shot back. A police officer was killed during the shooting as well. You had someone like Sundiati Akoli. Sundiati was another practicing Muslim who was a part of the Black Panther Party. This was the mission that brothers and sisters at that time who were Muslim, that they understood. And I'll get back to this point, but they understood that American society, the values, the morals, the direction, the oppressive outlet that they were doing against people of color in this country was not consistent with their values as Muslims. So they were trying to find outlets. How can we come together to bring about a change in the society? And keep in mind, they were coming from the most oppressed community in America, one of the most. The indigenous people were probably, to a certain degree, more oppressed than African American people at this time, and perhaps even today. But they had to decide, what are we going to do? So you had brothers and sisters like that who were Muslims, who were a part of these organizations that were put together to bring about social change. So let me jump ahead in time. In the interest of time, let me jump ahead a little bit and not spend too much time on this part of the presentation. And I want to remind us of some historical involvement of young Muslims throughout the more contemporary history that we have here in the United States. There weren't just African American Muslims. At this particular juncture in our history in this country, it wasn't just African American Muslims who were involved in trying to bring about transformation in themselves and in the society. And so as we move forward in time and closer to our time, we can look and see and if you don't know about the Palestinian intifadas, there were two of them. And in these two resistant efforts against the Zionist occupation of Palestine, that there were Muslims, young Muslims, college students and others who were coming out openly supporting the Palestinian people. This is going back to 1987, and even before that, before the Intifada. The Muslims of this country realized that it's more than just my acquiring a higher education. That they realized that in order for me to fulfill my mission as a Muslim, I have to be concerned with oppression wherever it may be. And when I find that I have to do something within my capacity, And so there were so many Muslims who were involved in supporting the Palestinians, not just what we're seeing on college campuses. Over 100 campuses across America today have been involved in support efforts for the Palestinian people against the genocide that they're going through. But this was something that just didn't start with this genocide that we've been witnessing for the last few months. And so after 9/11, in the post-9/11 period in this country, Muslims, young Muslims, no older than you, and some may be a little older than you, realized that this thing called Islamophobia was something that they couldn't hide from in American society. And after those Twin Towers came down, that there was a hysteria that was just burning up America. And that hysteria was impacting and affecting young Muslims' ability to go to high school, to be in middle school, to be in colleges free from harassment, free from being called a terrorist, free the girls, not free from some racist idiot, prejudiced idiot pulling off their headscarves. Young Muslim boys in high school and junior high schools being beaten up in the bathroom or out of after school on school grounds because of Islamophobia that was operating in America in this post-9/11 area. But it was Muslim students. And because they took a stand, other students, like we're seeing on the campuses in America today, they joined the Muslim students in taking a stand against the Islamophobia that was ripping apart communities across this country. And so this stance that was taken continued to evolve and continued to grow activism for Muslim students all across the country. And so it grew at a point when a group was established in 2012 as a result of the murder of primarily African American men, boys and men in the streets by law enforcement officers doing criminal acts and targeting African American men in particular and shooting them dead in the streets and going to court and not having anything happen to them. And so after this process continued, a group was formed called Black Lives Matter. And there were many Muslims, young Muslims, who got involved and were supporting this Black Lives Matter movement. And so with their presence in these organizations, these iterations in different parts of the country, in different places, and let me just share this before I go on from Black Lives Matter. I can remember a number of YM graduates and even YM members at the time that Black Lives Matter was organized. And I can remember they're calling me or seeing me somewhere and stopping me and asking questions about Black Lives Matter. And I can recall telling them that we have to be critical in our vision about what we're getting involved with as Muslims if the groups are led by non-Muslims. I wasn't saying don't get involved, but make sure you know what you're getting involved with. And for Black Lives Matter, separate the mantra of saying that Black lives truly matter, separate that from the organization that slogan came from. because that organization was saying that one of the reasons in their own writings, one of the reasons that we exist was to queer the Black movement. We wanted to see in their language, we want to see the Black community has been the one that's perhaps the most resistance to this queer behavior. And so we organized this group and organized activists to expose them to this population. And we wanted to see more involved. So when we get involved with different groups, I'm saying, like I said to a lot of the young Muslims who asked me about this organization, be sure you know what those groups are actually standing for. And don't get caught up in certain kinds of sloganeering or just joining and being a part of something. And then you come to find out that, whoa, that was good judgment. I got to do a little bit better the next time. Let me move forward here a little bit more, and I'll come to an end. Muslims, a number of years ago, got really involved in the climate change issue, environmental protection movement. And there was a young Muslim sister by the name of Isra Percy. And she co-founded an organization called U.S. Youth Climate Strike. And it was about environmental justice. If those of us in this room today don't understand that environmental justice is an issue that young Muslims and old Muslims like myself have to support and take leadership on, because the entire integrity of the very planet that we live on is being degraded because of those corporate entities and the lack of regulation. So all kinds of chemicals are just being belched into the air. They're causing all kinds of cancers and these kinds of things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the responsibilities of being Khalifa fil ard. We are the ones that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are the ones. Let me just ask a quick question. How many young people here are in college right now? How many of you intend to major in environmental science? Nobody. And this is one of the most critical areas that this nation and the world needs at this time. Because you're thinking about when I graduate from college and I become this and I become that, when I get married and I have children and I'll have my children comfortable lives. What if no one on the planet can live a comfortable life because of the degradation of the planet, the environmental ruin that is being caused today, that if it's not reversed or stopped, this world is going to be a very different place moving forward. And so there are issues, very essential, critical issues that need the input of Muslim activists, that need you to take your brilliance and apply it to social justice issues, apply it to environmental issues, apply it to economic inequities, to apply it in whatever area. And I'm not talking about just something that's happening overseas. We have to be involved in that because we're all part of one ummah. But let's not lose focus of our responsibility of what we need to do right here in this country. Let me just say a couple other things and I'll be done. And that is in, I think it was 2016, there was a protest by the Sioux, primarily the Sioux reservations in North Dakota. And there was this Dakota Access Pipeline, one of the big oil companies was want to have this pipeline run right through the Sioux Reservation, even through sacred grounds for the Sioux. And there were Muslims. I'll never forget, I went up to one of the protests there. And I'll never forget, there was one Muslim man on the Sioux Reservation there in North Dakota. And I hung out with him the whole time that I was up there. And I was trying to figure out, I mean, are you sure you're the only Muslim? What's going on that you're the only Muslim? But he was, and probably even today, except for his children. He has young children that are growing up now. But he's probably still the only Muslim there today. I offer this to say that there is hardly a more oppressed, historically and today, group of people, of oppressed people, than the indigenous population, the Native American people. And I ask myself, and I ask you, well, where are the Muslims? Right? We do so much help and work for so many different segments of the population. Where are the Muslims? Where are we when we're in college and we have time? And where are we when we're in certain specialties that we're majoring in? Where are we in not trying to direct attention and time to help this oppressed population? We can pick a number of issues that people in this country are, for the most part, ignoring. The purpose of my saying this history and trying to inspire us goes back to what I said at the very beginning. Every generation, all of us have to discover what is our mission, what is our collective purpose during the time that we're living today. And we have to either embrace that and do something with it, or we're just going to betray it. You have a responsibility. You have a responsibility because the Muslim community in the United States is one of the most educated populations in America. And you have an opportunity that so many others in this country may not have. Is merit-based. It's based on your abilities and capacities. So I'm not trying to suggest that you're getting special treatment. But because of the capacity that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you, it gives you a responsibility. It places on you a responsibility. And that is that during North Dakota pipeline demonstrations, I was so proud of the young Muslims, so proud of them, because what was going on at that time, the law enforcement departments, particularly in North and South Dakota, were monitoring social media. And they were realizing that the young people were communicating back and forth with each other, and they were stopping them before they could even get to the protest area, before they could get to the reservation. They were locking them up. They were confiscating their cars. And these brilliant young people start putting out false messages about, yes, I'm going to North Dakota. This is my route. This is where I'm going to stay when I get there. And it was all false information. So they scattered the law enforcement, going, blocking roads, waiting for them to come. And they're sitting out back on the reservation, supporting the Sioux Indians. I was going up with it. Utilize your with that in order to do, in order to promote